Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I would like to share my thoughts on The Moonlight Market by Joanne Harris. This is an urban fantasy novel, a modern fairy tale following the character of Tom Argent, who happens to meet the love of his life and then she disappears and he goes on a quest to find her, a quest that reveals to him a world of fairies hidden within our own, where moths and butterflies are at war with one another as their prince went missing centuries before. I wanted to read this book because I find that I like a fairy tale or a fantastical novel in autumn, and I wanted something that I could read in one sitting. I didn't read this in one sitting. I did not sit down and be completely enveloped by this story like I had hoped. However, I did enjoy the tale for the most part. I think that Joanne Harris has become renowned for these fairy tales, and there is a very particular way that she writes with a touch of the purple prose that suits this sort of novel very well. It's made up of quite a lot of parts, and the beginning of each of these parts has an italicized story, which is very much in the fairy tale vein, giving the history of what happened with these characters. And I think that that is reminiscent of Honeycomb and Orphea and The Blue Salt Road and all of these books that this author has written before that are fairy tale adaptations. I do wonder if you have to have read some of those before in order to get used to Joanne Harris's way of writing, but also because there are links to those other books within here, particularly in reference to two of the characters. Above anything, this isn't really a urban fantasy novel like some people have been describing it. On the front, I've just seen that Natasha Pulley did call it a modern fairy tale, and that is very much what it feels like. I think that if you look at it from that perspective of this being a fairy tale, then it is exactly what this book is meant to be. I, however, really did not like the character of Tom. His motives were a bit stupid, and I understand that he's supposed to have been blinded by some sort of glamour and he doesn't realise this, and he constantly goes from making stupid decision to making stupid decision. This led to an ending that felt incredibly fast and felt as though we hadn't properly led up to the climax that we received. While I've said before that I don't need a catastrophic, explosive ending, I feel like when the writer begins talking about a catastrophe that's happened and a war that's happened, like Joanne Harris does describe it, and she describes it in a way that is fitting to the book, but it just kind of felt like a damp squib is how I'll describe it. I did enjoy the book, and I do think I'll return to it in future. Maybe I'll have a different impression when I read it more, and I will give it that. I just feel like the book needed to do more. I wanted more characterization from Tom. There were twists that occurred within the book that, and I don't mind a twist in a book, you know, nowadays everywhere you look there's going to be a twist of some sort, but there's a lead into them, and that sometimes the reader can see coming and sometimes they can't. But a character we meet in the beginning of the book, you don't really hear much about them, and then suddenly they become very important to the narrative. I'm going to reference my own book here. With the writing of my most recent novel that's coming out next year, when a few people read that, due to a change that had happened, we didn't meet a particular character for 180 pages, and they were quite important to the story. And so, through beta readers and editors, I made the decision to include this character in more scenes, and I kind of wish Joanne Harris had done the same. Even just a reference to them would have been fine, because they become quite important to the story, and I'd forgotten who they were, and I had no idea who we were talking about when we eventually went and met them. I'm also unsure why it's called The Moonlight Market, because we spend about 3 pages there, and whilst this is an excellent title for a book, it's not really indicative of what the book is about. I think maybe that's the thing. Maybe I wanted to spend more time at the Moonlight Market. Maybe one of the reasons I don't like this book as much as I'd hoped is because I really enjoyed the time we spent at the Moonlight Market within the book's pages, and seeing this weird, wonderful, fantastical market that the currency was memories, and the way that the author described memory and loss, and the fact that our protagonist has actually forgotten how many times they've been to the Moonlight Market in the past, and so keeps forgetting the characters that he's met. There's a dramatic irony in that the reader knows who Tom is, even though Tom doesn't know himself. There is something of the fairy tale aspect and the fantastical aspect that I like about this book, which I think sometimes within the fantasy genre, we've reached a point where we're like, I need to understand absolutely everything. I need the magic system explained to me. If the magic system is not explained in a thorough enough level, I'm not going to give this book a good rating. And I like this book because it doesn't really have a magic system. It kind of says to the reader, you try to make sense of the world and there is no making sense of this. This is just the way that things occur. And I like that. I like this touch of things being more like a fairy tale where it just is, and that's the way of things. But I think that there wasn't a strong enough characterization of all of the characters within here. We constantly get told a lot of stuff like, you're not supposed to like this character, you don't like them because of this, and then like the reader knows not to like them. But also, I'm kind of like, I needed more characterization from all the characters, really. They all were very one note, and Tom in the end just, just the final 30 pages of this. It ended, for me, on a bit of a sour note. We were approaching the end, and I was like, there's only 3 pages left. They're not going to have enough time to fit in the story here. And I was right. They did not fit the story in well. It was a lot of telling, a lot of, like, I feel like it was supposed to be romantic, and maybe I'm dead inside, but it just did nothing for me. So yeah, so I'm guessing I actually disliked this book more than I originally thought, which is disappointing because I'd really looked forward to this one. And maybe that's why I'm more disappointed than I thought I would be, because I'd expected more from the book. But hey, that was The Moonlight Market by Joanne Harris. I will probably save it and read it again because the author is one of my favourites, but this is not one of my favourites by them. If you would like to talk about anything I've discussed in this video, then please feel free to do so in the comments. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.